Hello everybody, welcome back to The Game Room, Season 6. I am one of your mods, Incog, and today I am joined by...
Me, Mr. Marshadow.
Of course. I almost forgot your name and I almost called you Doc PhD. But regardless, welcome back to the TGR Season 6. We're going over each and every team today. Obviously, you can see one of the teams on screen, but we're going to just go over what each team has, the best parts about them, the low parts about them, and so on and so forth. With that being said, we'll start right here. So we do have Pat Mac's team first, but go ahead.
Before we get started, everything is going to be in draft order. And the specific thing you're going to see on the screen is going from left to right, top to bottom. The order is haircut, so Fluttermane first and Clawitzer last, and we're gonna look at the teams in draft order.
Yep. So just keep that in mind that you might not see your favorite first. You might just see them last if they drafted last. With that out of the way, though, we do have Pat Mac first, as I mentioned. Pat Mac does have an interesting team. He has the Fluttermane, the Iron Treads, I believe that is, Salamence, Quillfish, Delayed.
Just prepare for us to stumble over every new Pokemon.
Yeah. Belly Bolt, Arboliva.
I believe it's Arboliva.
Yeah, something like that. Houndoom, Cricketune, and lastly the Clawitzer. Obviously, first overall pick was Fluttermane, and definitely one of the best consensus Pokemon this generation.
So it was one of three things. It would have been Fluttermane, Palafin, or Houndstone. And probably not Houndstone because this is going to be 4v4 best of 3 singles. Mm-hmm. We forgot to mention that.
Yeah, of course.
It's 4v4, not 6v6.
Yep. And the 4v4 format definitely is definitely more technical than 6v6, as you do have to care more about the Pokemon you bring rather than just bringing 2 last Pokemon that may have something to do. All 4 of your Pokemon matter a lot in this case. So with that there, Fluttermane, great first overall pick. I believe Pat was between this, Palafin, and definitely Iron Valiant, but went with Fluttermane. Really great top pick. And looking at the team surrounding it, though, I will say it's an interesting team nonetheless. I do like the Iron Treads on this team. Good speed tier, great coverage in general, but you never know with these kind of things. I mean, Iron Treads, while it is really good, Ground Steel can definitely be something better for a defensive typing than more offensively maybe, but we'll see how that goes. I haven't seen too much of Iron Treads in my opinion, but you never know.
Yeah, no, Great Tusk you definitely see more often. It is a more reliable rock setter. Don't think I've seen Iron Treads at all on ladder, so we'll see what Pat Mac can do with it.
Double Intimidators coming up on Salamence and Quillfish. Great Intimidate Pokemon. Salamence definitely giving you defog as well, which definitely will matter in this generation where a lot of things definitely lost defog and a lot more things got hazards. So definitely wanting to get that Pokemon was very, very good for Pat.
Yeah, and a lot more Pokemon got hazard moves. Garchomp got spikes. There's Glimora with its stupid ability. So hazard removal got more important and more sparse. So very important.
Of course, and having double Intimidate on this team is very good, especially Pokemon that don't share weaknesses in Quillfish and the aforementioned Salamence. And then moving forward on this team, Gallade getting that new ability Sharpness and being able to really just not need close combat. Instead, getting Sacred Sword is a really good offensive unit. Definitely a good Scarfer, but also potentially a Trick Room user if he can get it off. And speaking of Trick Room, he has some slower Pokemon too.
I believe Psycho Cut is also boosted, so it can use that. I believe that makes it stronger than Zen Headbutt.
Yeah, it does. And
does it even get Zen Headbutt?
Yeah, it does. It does. Okay. So Psycho Cut's way better this generation. But I'm just gonna call you RB. So RB and Bellibolt, both slower Pokemon. Definitely, if Trick Room is up there, definitely dangerous. Though RB is definitely still dangerous no matter with or without Trick Room. Grass Normal not being the greatest type combination still is good with that ability with Seed Sower, and definitely if you can't kill it in one shot, it might do it back to you.
One thing, because I have used Bellibolt on ladder, is that it has 0 move pool. It has thunder moves and electric moves and Parablast, and that is it.
However,
So,
most people don't know what to do against Belly Bolt if they don't have a ground move, and still be able to parabolic charge and get back a lot of health. Muddy Water to at least lower accuracy and still have at least one coverage move out of the very dismal move pool, as we've just said, is still fine. I like it as an electric though. Fat electric.
Yeah, it is a very fat electric. It has both tanked many powerful moves in my playthrough.
And on the last three Pokemon, Houndoom's a faster Dark type, definitely a good one for sure. Kricketune getting webs is definitely very crucial, as it's one of three Pokemon that actually gets webs. And Claudsir, I really do like Claudsir on this team, but losing Flip Turn through the generational shift is definitely going to be impactful. Only things that get Flip Turn nowadays are the Palafin family and I believe Iron Bundle. So losing Flip Turn is definitely very impactful for Claudsir. However, it's still a really offensive Pokemon, and as I mentioned earlier with Trick Room from Gallade, definitely could be a really nice approach to this entire team if they want to have a backup mode of offense outside of potentially Tailwind Salamence. But I definitely think this team is good, definitely has weak spots in the Belly Bolt and potentially Houndoom Kricketune, but outside of that, I think this is a decent team.
Okay, how about we give each team a star rating from 0 to 5 stars?
Sure.
Or from 1 to 5 stars.
Of
yeah,
course.
so I say how about a 4 stars for this one for me?
I'll give it a 3-star from me.
Okay, so 3.5 average?
Yeah, 3.5 average it is. I think it's decent. I think the low points aren't too bad, but I definitely think that it definitely needs to be used. I definitely have to see it in practice. I think on paper, it might look great. Maybe to me right now, maybe it doesn't look that great, but throughout the season, if Pat can really just use Fluttermane to the best capabilities they can use it and also abuse it to see if we may ban it at some point.
Yeah.
We'll see how good this team really does.
One more thing to keep track of it, this team does not have like a dedicated Terra user. Any of these Pokemon could Terra, and all of them could use it well.
Yep, that is very true as well.
But that will make it harder to team build against.
Of course. But moving on to the next team, you can go ahead and read this one out. We have DJS and the Tentacruel Pirates.
Yes, so the previously mentioned Iron Bundle, one of the few Flip Turn users, and a very fast, very strong ice type Pokemon, Palmot, Garganical, I believe that's Wo-Chien. God, now I'm struggling with the old Pokemon. Noivern, Gardevoir, Berserker, the Sandcastle.
Palisand.
Find me its name? Palisand, there. Zangoose and Muck. So Iron Bundle is extremely fast, extremely strong, and Photosynthesis or Quark Drive, whatever it gets, whatever ability it is, will definitely help. I don't. What's this Palmot to?
Palmot is Revival Blessing, plus
right,
the fact that it's
Revive.
really fast, on top of being an electric fighting type that also gets Fake Out. So definitely a very good support Pokemon, but as well a definite offensive threat.
Okay, yeah. Organical is going to be mostly a bulky Rock Setter. Salt Cure is a fantastic move. But other than that, it doesn't provide too much offense. Wo-Chien, I think, is the worst of the not legendary quartet, but whatever you want to call it. I believe it's the Ruin quartet.
Mm-hmm.
Noivern is Noivern, strong, fast, and has defog. So, what more could you want from a Pokemon, right?
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna skip Gardevoir. I don't think I've ever used Gardevoir in draft or ever played against a Gardevoir in draft, so I don't know what to say about it.
Well, I'll say it for you then. Gardevoir is a great special attacker, as well as I believe it may have lost teleport, since a lot of things lost teleport this generation.
Yeah.
But on top of which, great Choice Scarf user, great Psychic type in general. Trace is a really dope ability in singles. Synchronize can definitely be a good ability depending on the situation, but mostly you're probably going to see Trace more than ever. Psychic Fairy is very spammable, definitely as a Choice Scarfer. But on top of which, Gardevoir is could be better. Could be a better bulkier psychic type if I had.
One thing to keep out. One thing to keep in mind with Trace that you can try and Trace Photosynthesis or Quark Drive and get your own boost. Especially if they have a Sun or Electric Terrain team, which nobody drafted Pincurchin. I will just say that nobody drafted Pincurchin, but Torkoal was drafted, so we'll see if Gardevoir tries to trace Photosynthesis and get the boost from that.
Of course.
Berserker is a wonderfully powerful Pokemon. Is not too bulky and very slow, but it got even stronger this generation with Terra Steel giving it an extra stab on top of Steely Spirit, its regular Steel Stab and Choice Band, as well as Terra Blast being stronger than Iron Head. So I'm very, very excited to see how much damage that stuff does and how much damage this little cat can do. Palisand sounds like a backup Garganical.
I mean, it could be for rocks, but I feel like also having a spin blocker because of the lack of hazard removal this generation definitely can help. In general, I think it's good on this team. Ghost is a very good type. Ground is an amazing typing. I think that without a real Trick Room mode on this team, Palisand's strengths are not going to be as well known, as it's basically just a defensive wall in this team, like Wo-Chien, like Garganacl. So you basically just have another wall that can hit pretty hard, just like the others, but it's basically a backup to a backup.
Zangoose name is Gardevoir, except I know even less about it. So go ahead, you can take this one too.
Oh, Zangoose? Oh man, Zangoose is great. Zangoose, if for those who don't know, Zangoose hasn't been in the game in about 4 years now, since, you know, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. And Zangoose is probably one of the few Pokemon where you definitely still have to look out for it towards the end of games, as it gets a really great ability in Toxic Boost, which for those who may not know, Toxic Boost is its hidden ability, which all it has to do is hold just a little orb, a Toxic Orb if you will, and just goes to town on your team. And just like Pokemon with Guts, you know, you definitely have to be careful. What basically Toxic Boost does, it powers up physical moves when it's poisoned specifically, and being able to have access to quick attack as well as just good enough normal type moves definitely puts this Pokemon in a good enough tier to where it could definitely clean up a game if a team is slow. And the reason I say that is I'm pretty sure that Zangoose is base 90 speed. So with that out of the way, a lot of slow Pokemon definitely have to look out for Zangoose, no doubt. And it's a great physical threat, but definitely being normal type.
Zangoose
isn't always good.
Zangoose is base 90 speed.
Yep, there it is. Great Pokemon overall.
Muck, I believe, is just another wall, but poison type, which is nice, so you can get rid of toxic spikes. Since this team does lack removal besides Noivern's default, which it doesn't always want to run, does like running choice items, choice specs, choice scarf. So there's one thing that I think this team lacks is removal. It's a good removal that actually wants to run that removal all the time. I don't know if Wo-Chien gets anything, but I don't imagine it does.
Yeah, there's not real good removal here. Definitely offensive power, but no real good removal. But on a scale of 1 to 5, how are we rating this?
I'd say a 2.5, but I could bump it up to a 3 if they do well, if they use it well.
Yeah, I think a 3 is definitely where I'd say they are too. Definitely a really solid team. Definitely without great hazard removal. Obviously you have Noivern, but Noivern doesn't want to run Defog every week, of course. You have a good spin blocker in Palisand. I just feel like it's a hodgepodge of Pokemon, but that's because we are literally so early in the generation that being able to tell what's really built well isn't really possible.
Unless you're Fluttermane or Palafin.
That is true. But
yeah, it's a hodgepodge of Pokemon, but it's a hodgepodge of good Pokemon, so you'll get something.
But moving forward to the next team.
If you draft 10 good Pokemon, you're gonna do good.
Of course.
Somewhat good.
You're gonna do fine. You'll probably stay at about, you know, neutral. But moving on to the next team, we do have the McChesney Park Slowpokes and their coach Ape Raider. So this team,
someone drafted Pincurchin, I lied.
Now this team looks really good on paper, and when I look at it here, Ape Raider has Iron Valiant, Garchomp, Glamora, Pincurchin, Sableye, Masquerain, Flareon, Cloyster, Bramblegast, and Oinkalone, I think that's how you say it.
Yes, and on the dock it was specific. It was listed as male Oinkalone. I don't know if there's an actual difference between them.
Slight stat changes. One has more HP, one more attack, and the other one has more like defensive capabilities, I guess. But regardless of that, we do have the Iron Valiant. We all knew this was going to be here at some point, whether it was going to be this pick or the next one. And we also have the Garchomp. Definitely great fairy dragon core right there, because there is no steel type on this team, but really good offensive pieces in the Iron Valiant and Garchomp. Iron Valiant definitely is one of the more abusive Pokemon this generation, I will say. Well, Garchomp getting spikes is definitely really good, so you don't always have to use it offensively. You could just set up hazards with it, of course, which is a really good way of just telling your opponent, hey, good luck, GG's. Oh, speaking of hazards, did I mention Glamora's on this team? There's so many hazards on this team, from Pincurchin, Glamora, Masquerain, Cloyster, and Garchomp. This is the hazard stacking team.
Hazards does Pincurchin get? Do they get spikes?
Yeah, get spikes and T-spikes, fun fact. And Cloyster gets those too.
Yeah. A couple of 4 Pokemon get spikes on this team.
Yeah, it's this team, you literally have to expect hazards. And for good reason. The offensiveness of Iron Valiant and Garchomp is really good once hazards are up too, because once hazards are up, they don't have to be too crazy invested. All they got to do is make sure you're taking spikes damage, and that's it. GG's. And with the Pincurchin Iron Valiant combo, now that he has a free attack or speed boost to go off of, setting up more just to start sweeping and cleaning up the game.
Now, I know people at the start of the generation, people did joke that Garchomp is now a suicide lead, but doesn't need to be that on this team, because you have Glamora, you have Cloyster that can be suicide leads for Garchomp to just wreck. Cloyster still gets Shell Smash, you can still do that. Masquerain gets Sticky Web, we did not mention that.
Oh yes.
Flareon with Guts isn't offensive, but you do have to do it with Poison, because it's a fire type, it can't be burned. Unless you want to Terra it so you can activate a Flame Warp, but that seems really stupid.
Yeah, I think that'd be unreliable, and as well, Flareon still becomes more threatening as the advent that a lot of Pokemon got Trailblaze, especially all of the evolutions. Even at base 65 speed, you're still dealing with a Pokemon that has a grass move that can boost its speed, which can definitely help hit waters really hard super effectively, as well as enabling a Pokemon that still being slow doesn't mean it can't be EV to outpace certain threats that are trying to underpace or trying to outpace or match speed on other Pokemon. Flareon definitely has a good role on this team as well. Flash Fire is still an amazing ability. Maybe not crazy on this team, so we're going to see Guts a lot more often. But we haven't talked about the 3 elephants in the room, because we already talked about basic hazards. Sableye, Brambleghast, and Oinkalone. Sableye is a great prankster, sets up weather, and can also be very annoying. But I don't know how much I enjoy it on this team particularly. I feel like it's just kind of weird.
It's a wall. It gets predator cover. What it needs to be. It can set up screens for Iron Valiant. The spin blocker as well.
Yeah.
It is a good type. 2 spin blockers with Sableye and Brambleghast. And do you really want to rapid spin a Garchomp and take that damage?
You really don't. I think Brambleghast is great on this team. Good ghost type and definitely immune to wind moves like Hurricane and Heat Wave apparently too. It's immune to with Wind Rider. So there's that. Losing, not having to worry about certain super effective moves that are spammable, by the way.
I'm not sure who would choose Heat Wave over Flamethrower in singles.
Well, you never know with some people, people make certain decisions that you never really have time to question. Speaking of things to question,
it always blows my mind that Heat Wave is stronger than Flamethrower.
Hey, it happens.
Yeah. Heat Wave is 95, Flamethrower is 90.
Yep. And then Oinkalone gets thick fat, can do the stuffed cheek set, and it can body press through teams. But I think it's just it's basically Greedent. It's just a normal that's here to really stop the more offensive ghost of the tier. So that's probably why it's here, because there's not a whole lot that's really stopping the ghost. With free Terra on this team, I feel like this team is definitely a 4, almost a 5. I'd say it's a 4 out of 5 for me.
I'd say that's fair.
So definitely a really great team. Probably one of the better teams, but we still have teams to go through. So I could be, eating my own words soon. But with that out of the way, we'll move on to the next team here, which is the Bell Tower Radiance, coached by Lady Lilac. Go right ahead, Marshadow. What do we got here?
Well, not the elephant in the room, the dolphin in the room, Palafin, one of the best Pokemon for this generation. Ting Lu, which I think is a very underrated Pokemon. It's a wonderful rock setter. Very defensive, does get access to Body Press, so it can do damage. Its Earthquake is also not weak at all. And I think it's a massively underrated Pokemon, and I'm very happy to see it. I'm very excited to see how Lady Lilac will use it. Screamtail, looks like a vampiric Jigglypuff. I mean, that did not look like a vampire Jigglypuff. The straight face. Not sure what it actually does as a Pokemon though.
Incog moment for sure. Here's what this Pokemon does. It can wish, has great HP, great defenses, not enough offensive Pokemon unless it does the Calm Mind Store power set. Great wish passive.
It's a Chansey, not Chansey. It's the table replacement.
Yeah, it also gets screens. It's a really good support Pokemon and can definitely be very annoying. It's basically defensive Espather if you really want to coin it a term.
Slitherwing, very strong fire type. I'm sad that Volcarn's Paradox forms don't have Quiver Dance.
Oh, that's not a fire
Maybe
type.
that would have... It's not a fire type?
No, that is a bug fighting type.
It's bug fighting?
Yep, that's Slitherwing. I know.
Seriously,
It's surprising.
It looks like a firebug type.
It does.
Axios, I believe, gets access to rocks. It's not the rock setter. You can use Tinglu as a rock setter, Carkol can be a rock setter, but you have it as an option. I do believe it gets access to Swords Dance. If you're wrong again.
No, it does.
Yeah, Swords Dance, so makes it a very strong setup sweeper, and if Palafin ever dies, you got Haxorus. Magnezone? Magnezone can Volt Switch, get in Palafin, get in Haxorus, get in Slitherwing, so that is very nice. Vivian is Vivian. It gets access to Quiver Dance if you want that. Otherwise, I'm not sure what it does.
Yeah, it's really just Quiver Dance, and then having that ability, Compound Eyes, being able to perhaps have a better chance at hitting Sleep Powder is really good. But obviously, it's a Quiver Dance sweeper. If you don't have your physical threats, you obviously have your special threat in Vivillon.
Rabasca, I've never looked at its stats, if that's even how you pronounce it.
Rabsca, okay. It gets access to Trick Room, it can speed swap things, and it also gets Revival Blessing just like Palmot. So realistically, you can use it to revive a Pokemon if you really need to, but also Rabsca isn't the greatest offensive weapon. It's more of just a utility mon that can get up Trick Room, but also it's not as dangerous as the rest of this team. I definitely think Lady Lilac will probably find a great way to use it. I mean, they always find a great way to use their mons, so we'll see how it goes.
I believe they're two-time champions, Dream Team in Season 5, and then Mythical Mayhem in the off-season, so I'm sure they'll find a way to use it.
Of course.
And then their Double Fire, Carkol, and Crocolore, I think, are just low-tier picks to fill out the team that may or may not do something.
Yeah.
I already mentioned rocks for Carkol, otherwise Crocolore is just a fire type.
Yeah, it gets unaware, but it's not really doing too much on this team. I think Carkol might still get Rapid Spin. I could be wrong, but it's a really nice team. I think top 6 are looking like the more consistent Pokemon to be brought. Maybe we see Vivillon some weeks, but I think this team definitely looks like you still have to deal with it. So it's not like you know what's going to happen. You just have to deal with the fact that it's going to happen. I think this team is definitely like a 3.5 out of 5 for me, in my opinion.
And it has a Palafin. It can't be lower than a 3.
course. Definitely has good Pokemon, but it's just Palafin, Tinglu, everything is looking good, but when you know what you're facing, I feel like it can definitely make things easier, but sometimes for some people, it can make things a lot harder because you really don't know the exact set you're going to fight. Speaking of which, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next team here, but
I was just going to mention that besides Vivian, it does kind of lack in special offense, Vivian and Magnezone. Most of its threats are physical, but
yeah,
something to keep in mind.
It's definitely something you definitely have to look into, honestly, but hey, happens with some teams.
I'm also like that. I also draft heavily physical, so what can I say about it? So, well, who am I to say anything?
Of course, but it happens that way. You never know. Moving on to the next team, though, we do have the Old Blood and my good pal Sandy. Oh man, Sandy, you drafted a team. So Sandy's team has one of the more broken Pokemon as well, Shin Pao. Definitely really good, really great Pokemon. Ice Dark, great typing, and with free Terror going on, I mean, this Pokemon definitely goes ham.
I mean, I agree with what people have been calling it, Mega Weavile. That is an accurate statement. That is an accurate way to describe Shin Pao.
Very much so. Ledge, great fire ghost type, definitely a spin blocker, and definitely a great offensive Pokemon. Once again, mentioning free Terra here. Great Terra Pokemon. I mean, I've lost to countless Ledges being able to free Terra on the ladder and in general whenever I've done some VGC battles. So Pokemon's definitely really scary to deal with. And
in case you thought you could kill them with chip damage, let me introduce you to Wish Vaporeon.
Oh man, let me introduce you to the defensive core here, because a lot of these mons are hella defensive with really good offensive backbones too. Vaporeon losing Scald is really bad.
Oh, and one of the best fire resists and 2 fire immunities with Flash Fire Ceruledge and Well Big Body on Daxput.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you get a lot going here. Vaporeon losing Scald might be a problem for some people. Me personally, that just means I get to reasonably use Surf more. And honestly, Vaporeon has a special attack stat that should not be scoffed at.
Does not suck.
Yeah,
like most defensive waters.
It's a really good water. Losing Flip Turn, obviously bad, but still has access to Baton Pass. And let me tell you, good move right there.
I'll celebrate when Toxapex loses Recover.
You know, most people will. The whole countries will be united in that. But with the Vaporeon and Serena core, and then you also have Dotspin, Copperajah, and Dragalge, you have 5 really good defensive, can be made offensive Pokemon, as I like to call them.
And Rapid Spin.
And Spin.
And Rapid Spin.
And you still have good hazards with the Dragalge, with the Copperajah, and with all those 5 Pokemon in mind, you have a really good defensive core around 2 really great offensive weapons. And of course, we still have to get to other Pokemon, but let me just go ahead and speed run a little few of these. You know, Serena's really good as a rapid spinner, as well as a good defensive grass, as well as still maintain the
damage
that it is that B word. So it's really good Serena there. Dragalge, great Dragon Poison type. That ability is such a great ability.
Serena's base attack stat is 120.
So you always gotta be aware of Serena, and on top of that, Dragalge also has a really good special attack stat. So adaptability, Draco, and Sludge Bombs.
Special attack.
Yeah.
Special attack.
Oh, I said attack.
Yeah.
Oh well, it has a great special attack, not a great attack stat though. But it also lost access to flip turn. So I mean, you're definitely gonna have to. You can always try to predict back last generation, you could try to predict if it's gonna flip turn or not. Because half the time it'd be choice specs or just some other set here and there like AV. Now you have to be careful because it can become literally any type with Terra type and then just start blowing away your team with special attacks. Really good Pokemon here. Scyther and Hariyama. These are the 2 Pokemon I wanted to get to. Great offense, and Hariyama's stupidly bulky. I have missed using Hariyama in the past few years, man. I had to play Nat Dex just to get to use him. Now he's back. Akira Hariyama. Great Pokemon right here, man. Great fighting type, gets bullet punch. Great, obviously, with thick fat. Yeah, and bulk up. Gets great 3 abilities in sheer force, thick fat, and guts. So you really don't know what you're gonna be fighting every week, and you really have to be careful trying to get off burdens on this team because there's 2 Pokemon that will not be affected and one that doesn't mind being burned, or 3 Pokemon really, because you can't burn Kamala either. So you're really just sitting here like status
and
is hard.
Big body, flash fire type.
Yep.
And guts. Big body is a fire immunity.
Yup.
Village is a fire type.
Yup.
There's
so much.
Guts. Corian just doesn't care, and it has rest.
Exactly. It's just so hard to imagine fighting this team with fire. You cannot fight fire with fire this time. However, Pokemon that does care about fire slightly, Scyther, of course, and Caporaja. Great offensive physical units. I believe Scyther may still get defog. I could be wrong, but still really good offensively. It also got access to Trailblaze, so Trailblaze plus Technician equals, oh god, that thing gets a really good grass move with Technician.
Okay, Scyther does. Scyther does.
Good.
It also gets Sword Dance, as it always has.
Great offensive Pokemon in case Chin Pao is off for the weekend. You also have to be careful of a Swords Dancing, Technician boosting Pokemon in Scyther, and also just in general, even its moves that don't get Technician boosted are still really good. So, hey, be careful.
Unfortunate that lost to a Wing Beat, but we will have to manage.
Yeah, it's a loss.
Another unfortunate loss is Caporaja lost Power Whip, so it can no longer deal with ground types on its own, but I don't think that'll be a problem on this team.
No, ground types beware of everything that's on this team. Caporaja is still really good with rocks, of course. Sheer Force is still a great ability, and I think that it'll still just be a rocker on this team. Definitely not the greatest defensive steel, but definitely still a fine.
There's always heavy metal, heavy slam.
There is always that. And then speaking of Pokemon with maybe great strats that will never be stopped, Kamala. For those out there who don't know what I'm talking about, Sleep Talk, Last Resort, put a choice spin on it. You're basically guaranteed to hit or kill something if it's not a ghost or something that would like to take the hit, like a steel. So, or a rock actually too. So Kamala is really good in that regard. It's back, has rapid spin, has good coverage. Kamala is definitely one of those kind of Pokemon where you definitely have to sit there and be like, damn, I gotta be careful because I can't. This team is literally a team of I can't status it, and so what do? You have to set up T-Spikes, but then Dragalge comes in. I want to set up Rocks. What happens if they get defogged? Or what happens if I can't get them out? What happens if they put up hazards? I can't rapid spin properly. Like there's so many, so many problems moving forward trying to fight this team. But I think the thing that will happen most for Sandy is figuring out what he wants to bring. I feel like it becomes harder and harder per week to be like, okay, I want B6, I want B6.
This is gonna be the 6. You've heard of 4 move slot syndrome? Well, this is 6 Pokemon slot syndrome.
Yeah, so this team definitely is still like a 4, but if it can't overcome that 6 Pokemon slot syndrome, it's definitely gonna drop to a 3.
Yeah, okay. Next up, King Sosa.
Yep, next up.
King Sosa. King Sosa and his LA Infernape, and we got what is, in my opinion, lesser Skeletorch, and most people will probably disagree with me on that one. Dragonite, Bronzong, the flower, not Floette.
Florges.
Florges, Electros, Dondozo, Go-Go! Crocodile, Persian, and Phalanx. They just mentioned with Chi-Yu, it is basically the same as Skeletorch. It is Ghost Fire type with great special attack. It is faster.
Oh no, it's Fire Dark actually.
Oh, it's Fire Dark?
Yeah, it's because it's
Dark
part of the Ruin Squad.
So, Dark and Ghost are the same offensively, so no one cares.
That is true as well.
Otherwise, it just great speed, great special attack, flamethrower, dark pulse. It'll just rip through teams. I do believe it gets access to Calm Mind. Its ability lowers special defense of all Pokemon on the field besides itself, so that'll make it even easier. Dragonite, same old Dragonite with multi-scale. You can run Dragon Dance on it. You can run Extreme Speed, Outrage, whatever, Earthquake. I think it lost to a Wing Beat, but I might be wrong on that one. You can still run Heavy Duty Boots. As always, you can run Leftovers, you can run, well, not Life Orb, but Choice Band if you want to. You can run Yachi Berry. Bronzong is a great tank. Always has been. It is a Trick Room setter, but I don't think that'll be used too much on this team. This team is on the faster side. Gorgeous is a great support mon. I do believe it gets access to Wish.
Yep.
Besides that, its offense is not the greatest. Electros, the no weaknesses Pokemon. Is it's an electric type with Levitate. That's probably the best thing about it.
Yeah, it gets a great myriad of coverage, so definitely have to be careful, because if it can Terra, it'll definitely be a Pokemon where you really don't know what it's bringing to the table. So it's definitely more like damned if you do, damned if you don't. You have to be always ready for whatever it can do, because it doesn't just do one thing perfectly, it does a lot of things pretty good.
And I mean, that's not
that bad. But moving on.
I'm trying to pull up Dondozo's stuff.
Oh, Dondozo, I mean, just the bulky
pulling
Pokemon.
up its stats.
Base 150 on its HP, I'm pretty sure.
Base 150 HP, 115 defense. Special defense is lacking at 65, but that's still not bad. And base 100 attack to go with that, so it does hit relatively hard. Without the double Omni boost, it should still be a great bulky water type. And Go-Goat, very excited is back. The best Pokemon. Unfortunately not too good because it's slow and frail. It's average speed and average bulk, which makes it a below average Pokemon. But what are you gonna do? It does get Sap Sipper, so it can switch in on grass types. It does get decent coverage, and I do believe it gets Swords Dance. Crocodile, Intimidate, Moxie, whatever you want to run, Choice Band, Choice Scarf, Knockoff, Earthquake. Same with it was in Gen 8. Version. I think being cat is its best quality, because I don't know of anything else.
You know, it's a decently fast Pokemon. That's really it. It's a good normal, I guess. I don't know what else it does.
It'll probably just be used as a revenge killer.
Mm-hmm.
And Phalanx, if you want to set up no retreat, you can always use that. Double if you had Phalanx, and then Tatsugiri Dondozo, you would just have 2 no retreats, but one is significantly better because it's double Omnibus.
Yep. I think that this team has a lot of good parts. I'm not sure how it's going to function, but I do like the parts of it. Definitely great bulk, great offense.
I think it has good parts, but its synergy kind of falls off.
Mm-hmm. The car starts, but it doesn't go far. I think it's a 3 out of 5 still.
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah. But moving on to the next team, we do have the Vancouver Hatenas and their coach, Bread Pudding. You already know. Shout out to Bread.
How did Dorog Moon get to 7?
Well, you know, some people decided, you know what, I don't want to pick up certain mons. And let me tell you something. The fact that 3 Paradox Pokemon ended up here is insane to me. Roaring Moon, Iron Moth, Iron Hands. Then we have Klefki, Dawnfan, Gyarados, Lilligant, Frosmoth, Stantler, and Misdreavus. This team is fucking nasty. Okay?
Let me make it better. Make it better. Klefki gets priority electric terrain.
Yep. So basically the entire time you are scared of whatever Klefki's gonna put up. And once it puts up that terrain, well, Iron Hands and Iron Moth will just start sweeping your team more than likely. This team has a lot of great offensive synergy.
And it can spike, just because Dawnfan gets rocks and Rapid Spin. Wonderful Rapid Spinner, one of the best.
Yep.
Stantler is Stantler.
Yep.
That's all I can say.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot once you get further down this team, because Frosmoth, Stantler, and Misdreavus are like the standouts where it's like, Oh, they're here because Mischievous is a spin blocker. Frostmoth is an ice type, I guess. Stantlers are normal. Like,
Well, no, Frostmoth gets Quiver Dance.
that's fine. But on a
And Ice
Pokemon
Scales.
with, that's fine. With a Pokemon that has base 65 speed and getting Quiver Dance, it's oftentimes that Pokemon can just tear into fire and be fine against both of its stabs. So it's kind of just like good in the late game, I guess. But in the early game, I feel like the breaking Pokemon are the Iron Hands, the Roaring Moon, and the Iron Moth, which realistically, if you don't know what they do, let them set up and you'll see what they do. Because that's really what this team is.
If you don't know what they do, go with the OU ladder. You'll figure it out quickly.
Because this team is definitely set up to win, and they don't really need too much help. I mean, getting up those spikes from Klefki's really good. Getting up rocks from Donphan's really good. And after that, realistically, this team goes ham.
Oh, and they have Moxie Gyarados.
Yep, a dangerous threat all the time.
Why do you need two Quiver Dancers that are both subpar?
You know, I think that Lilligant is fine and Frostmoth is better, but I feel like if you're trying to feel out what you need or what you want, you kind of get those two things kind of congealed together. So maybe they just wanted them both.
Hey, sometimes you just want them both.
Yep. I think this team...
Maybe they just drafted Frostmoth because it's a beautiful Pokemon.
Maybe. I think that this team is definitely
they got everything
good though.
Once they got Gyarados, they had everything they needed, so they just drafted some of their favorite Pokemon. You never know. Of course,
they had the 6 that they could bring every week realistically and picked up some other Mons. Which does kind of bring this team to that 3.5 slot. I think that it's really good. I think a 4 is definitely great for this team. I think it is definitely a 4. But as I said with the other team a bit ago, if you have a team that has a lot of Pokemon that you know are going to be coming, it's kind of just like, depending on how you look at it, could be easier, could be harder to prep for. And this team definitely has that kind of groove going on. But for what it's worth, the Pokemon that will be coming are really good.
Somehow multi-dimensional and so very multifaceted at the same time.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how.
Yeah, but definitely a 4 out of 5 for me personally. This team's really good. But moving forward, we do have the next team on the docket.
Also, the reason my Grumpig is so small is because that's what I think it will contribute to the team.
Oh, well, it happens that way. Well, we do have the Sydney Star Raptors and one of my good pals, Luke Harry. But go ahead, tell them about this team here, Marshadow.
Okay, I mean, if you have played if you have played competitive Pokemon in Generation 8, Dragapult needs no introduction. He's largely the same. It's still the same old Dragapult from Generation 8. And with screen support from Grimmsnarl, Thunderwave support, he just gets even better. Mousehold has Tidy Up, one of the more consistent recovery moves, because it is 100% not dependent on your opponent. Because Tidy Up, a move that affects you, not your opponent, so they can't do anything to stop it besides just taunt. And it can do some good damage with Population Bomb. Toxtricity, just a nice strong offensive Pokemon. And the same old Dragapult to Gen 8, no, it has a good physical Ghost Stab now. Fortress, good Hazard Setter, good Spinner. Cryogonal, good Spinner. Good Special Attacker with Freeze Dry. Breloom, Poison Heal, Mach Punch, same as it was back in Gen 7. Masculine has a surprisingly high attack set at 91. I'm not sure if it gets access to the new Wave Crash. If it does, it'll definitely use that. Otherwise, Liquidation is still strong. Camerupt and Grumpig, I think, are just, well, I need 2 more Pokemon, so I'll just get something.
Yeah, I feel like I like a lot of this team, and then you get to the last 3, like, Bastion's great. Once again, another water Pokemon that lost access to Flip Turn. Camerupt gets Rocks, and that's the best it'll probably do for this team, I imagine.
Camerupt doesn't need Rocks because you have Fortress.
Well, yeah, of course, but it's still the use. It's just me listing off what its use would be. but then Grumpig's kind of just there. I mean, I like Grumpig. I'm not going to sit there and act like I don't. But I feel like having a bulky psychic that can put up screens is fine, but then you also have like screens from Paragonal and Grimmsnarl mostly. So I don't know what else Grumpig will do on this team. So I feel like this team is definitely like, it's still very much a 4, but it's on the weaker side of a 4 for me, because the top about 7 Pokemon are really, really great and interchangeable per week per which one you're going to leave on the bench. But it's kind of just like, I think a lot of the teams this season are very much, I got really good picks at first, and then the rest of them are just kind of like, I needed this. But we'll see how the other teams really do fare out there. But with that out of the way, but if you have anything else to say, what's up?
No, I don't have anything else to say. I think I got most of what I had to say in the original monologue. Yeah.
But moving on.
Dundee Darmanitan.
Yup.
Dundee Darmanitan's coached by Pokebaldi. Unfortunately, wherever he starts from only had the thing for midday Lycanroc, so we make do with what we have. That's supposed to be Duskform Lycanroc, but did not have access to Sprite.
Happens that way.
That is base form Rotom. That is Rotom Spook. It's Rotom Spook.
Yeah. So Dundee, Pokebaldi has the Kingambit, Hatterene, and Houndstone, Lycanroc Dusk, Salazzle, Goodra, Rotom Ghost, Wugtrio, Lurantis, and Sandaconda. So without getting Hippowdon or Tyranitar, we have now opted for, I can just set up Sand by myself by getting my Pokemon hurt with Sandaconda, and that does pseudo-enable Houndstone and Lycanroc, or really just Houndstone since it is Lycanroc Dusk technically. So the thing is like this team very much looks like Trick Room, and then you have really fast Pokemon after that. So it's like, I don't know which way this team is going. Like, I really do like the look of the team, but I don't, how we described it earlier, it's synergy. The synergy might not be it, and that's the problem for this team. I like Kingambit. Supreme Overlord is a great ability, great new ability. With if Pokemon are dead, it gets, a 10% boost per Pokemon dead on its attack and special attack. Houndstone, obviously everyone knows Last Respect.
Here's something. Something I'm curious to see if that will happen. Will we see Hatterene go for Trick Room and then Misty Explosion to getting Kingambit?
Ooh, maybe. Just so it gets that slight boost on its attacks. I think that'd be really fun. Lycanroc Dusk, I believe, is the Cheeto form Lycanroc, as I like to call it. Great Pokemon, puts up rocks. Endeavor, if it has a sash, really great Pokemon in general. And as I mentioned, if you know what Houndstone does from Smogon, then you definitely know about Last Respects. If all the Pokemon are dead for Houndstone, 300 base attack, Terra Ghost that, Pokemon's essentially unstoppable.
We're in 4v4.
That is true. So it's only going to be 200, which is still a lot of damage, but not as potent.
Ridiculous. It's still ridiculous, just not Instaban.
Yeah. And of course, we do have the Lycanroc Dust, as I mentioned, Endeavor, Rocks, and definitely still really good Pokemon with Accelerock. Salazzle, great Pokemon. I do like it, but I don't know how much I like it on this team particularly. Fast Pokemon. I think Salazzle might get T-Spikes. I don't think it actually does, but I'm not sure. Really good Pokemon here.
I don't think it does. You can check. Keep talking.
Moving forward though, you do have Rotom, of course. When it comes right down to it, Rotom's really nice.
It does get Toxic Spikes.
What again?
It does get Toxic Spikes.
It does?
It will never. I don't think I've ever seen a Salazzle use Toxic Spikes.
Well, it's still good to have hazards, I guess. So maybe it'll use it. I don't know. I've never seen it use it personally, except for like one time. But with that, we do have Rotom, good spin blocker, as well as a good enough electric type. I think that if there's anything else available, maybe I would have splurged on that. But Rotom definitely is still fine. Losing Pain Split is definitely a big L on Rotom's part. Mentioning
I don't
Goodra
think it
here
can
really
affect
quick.
base Rotom as much as the Rotom forms.
I agree.
And Rotom Wash was not drafted, so...
Unfortunate night. I think it could have been good on this team, honestly. Speaking of Pokemon that are pretty good on this team, Goodra, good dragon type. as well as having access to all of its abilities. There's good coverage, and definitely a Pokemon you still have to look out for, no doubt. But in addition to that, I feel like it's just here because it's really bulky and helps stave off damage that would be done to like around Dusk and Houndstone and other Pokemon.
It has a surprisingly expansive move pool.
Oh yeah, of course. Goodra, great move pool right there on that thing. We have a disappointment coming up. We have Wug Trio. I love the design, but if you could have gotten any other water type offensively, I would have picked it.
Okay, so this guy would rather that you get Quaxley than Wug Trio.
Listen, man, I personally am not a big fan of Wug Trio. I don't know how good it's gonna do. I don't know how good it's gonna be. Losing Arena Trap on a consistent Pokemon that gets it like Doug Trio is kind of
120 speed.
That's fine, but on this team, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, look at this team from a perspective where I'm looking at it, right? It has consistent quote unquote sand and then Trick Room. Like, Wug Trio doesn't do anything there except for be a water type.
Look at this thing's sprite. It is a sore thumb.
Yeah, literally. So it's just kind of here. I like Lurantis as a bulky grass, but like, if I guess like, I don't know, because like, Lurantis is fine. Condre's still good. It's still a good Pokemon.
Rather Terragrass Gudras than Lurantis.
Yeah, Lurantis can go burr, but you got to work hard for that burr.
The most is just Kingambit that comes in at the end and just sucker punches.
Yeah, like, and then Sandaconda's here to put up sand essentially when it gets hit. So if you're fighting this team, expect Sand Spit most of the time because
you can also set up rocks.
Yep, that is true. You have good enough hazard setting in Sandaconda, the Salazzle as we discovered, and Lycanroc Dusk. You also have Trick Room mode with the Hatterene plus Kingambit combination, even following that up with
Rotom gets it as well, I believe. I believe Rotom gets Trick Room.
Yeah, I think it might. But you have good enough two-way offenses, but I feel like Trick Room is going to be used more often than not. And definitely in this 4v4 format, you definitely want to figure out what your opponent's doing before they figure out what you're doing. So definitely want to establish what mode you're going with first, because it definitely could bite you in the butt if you can't figure it out.
It's 3v3, so you could bring both to one match, do one then the other, and see which one works better for the tiebreaker.
Yep, of course. Definitely a 3 out of 5 team. I think the cohesion could have been better, but everything else is all right. So let's go ahead and move on to the next team, of course. We do have Tony Torkoal and his Turtle Club Torkoals. Go ahead and talk to... You used this logo for Torkoal. I get what you mean now.
Yep. The round 1 mascot pick. I gotta respect it.
There it is.
That is the Blaze form of Tauros, so the fire type version. I respect round 1 Tauros. That doesn't make it a particularly good pick. Torkoal is great, just not a round 1 pick.
Mm-hmm.
Scovillain does have photosynthesis. I almost said protosynthesis, but no. Photosynthesis. It's a regular one. And it is a fire type, so I believe this makes it the first fire type with photosynthesis. So that's nice. Espeon Magic Bounce, so more hazard, not removal, but hazard control, which is something that you really want in this meta. Scizor, Swords Dance, Bullet Punch, Choice Band, whatever you want. It does get Defog, it does get Roost. If you want that, Gengar, place it, you can Calm Mind. I think it gets Calm Mind.
Yeah, Gengar just gets Nasty Plot, that's it.
Nasty Plot is still good.
Mm-hmm.
Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave. Balloon Rain for some reason, Giga Drain for some reason. We just talked about Kingambit. Bishop does most of the same stuff. Comes in and it sucker punches. Pachirisu, the world champion, is Pachirisu doing singles?
I don't know. I think it's a Volt Switcher and it uses Nuzzle, but that's about it.
It's a world champion. That counts for something, right?
Maybe.
Taurus is very strong. But that's about it. How did Great Tusk last so long?
Yeah, when you look at this team at first, you're kind of like, oh yeah, this team looks kind of funky. You have like Bisharp right there with an Eviolite perhaps. You have like a good offensive core with Sun. And then you see Great Tusk and you're like, how did you end up towards the end of this draft? Great freaking Pokemon with ground fighting stab, and it has photosynthesis. So
by the way, this is the 10th overall. This is the 10th person in the draft, and this round would have been going from 1 to 14.
Yeah, so essentially, I'm telling you, there was like 90 other picks before this. This Pokemon went this late. I don't know what happened.
Or could be that somebody did the stupid thing called dropping Great Tusk in Grace. That's even dumber.
I just think this Pokemon going here is so crazy, but good to Tony on picking it up. I mean, great Pokemon right there. Photosynthesis in the sun is immensely good on this team. And even if you don't do that defensively, it's still a really good tank and puts up rocks just like Bisharp can and Sudowoodo. But damn, I was not expecting Pokemon to be last.
Yeah, Headlong Rush, very strong move. It does get rocks. I'm forgetting what I was gonna say. I forgot what I was gonna say.
Oh.
So it's just rocks and Headlong Rush.
I mean, realistically, that's all it needs.
Yeah, but it has more than that.
I mean, it gets Rapid Spin, it gets Ice Spinner, it gets a lot of good coverage and good spinning.
It gets Rapid Spin?
Yeah.
Hi.
It's Dawn Fan. It's just Dawn Fan, you know? It just happens.
It's just Dawn Fan.
Yeah, it just gets everything in.
Incog 2022.
Yeah, man, it's a Dawn Fan. And then Sudowoodo, I mean, gets rocks. That's it.
It's the new grass type Sudowoodo.
Exactly, it's Brassies right there. I mean, I think overall, when you look at this team on paper,
it's Sudowoodo.
Yeah, really. I think, on serious note, having the Sun being able to abuse things with Skullvillain and especially Fire Tauros is really nice. I think that this team picking Torkoal first overall definitely hurt it a slight bit, in my opinion, if we were judging it based on like, you know, how they were drafting. But I think getting Great Tusk and Tauros towards the end there is like really, really good. So I'm going to go ahead and just say, I think this team is a great 3 out of 5. I think 4 out of 5 would be pushing it. So I think 3 out of 5 is definitely where this team sits.
And yeah, 3.5.
Yeah, 3.5.
And 5 stars for getting Great Tusk.
Yeah, if we could do it based on you getting Great Tusk right there, 5 stars, but we can't. But moving on, we do have the next team. We do have Ted and his Sky Strikers.
Or other mods.
Yup, shout out to Ted. Ted's the GOAT for real. We do have the Baxcalibur, Skeledirge, Squawkabilly, Meowscarada, Orthworm, Quagsire, Morgrim, Cloth, Oricorio, and Girafarig. So, with that out of the way, Baxcalibur, great Pokemon, as you guys can probably tell from VGC if you've been keeping up with the loaded dice item, but also this Pokemon can't be burned and gets a +1 attack boost if it gets hit by a fire attack. So really dope Pokemon in general. Skeledirge, if you don't know, that's one of my favorite Pokemon this generation. Unaware is a great ability, as well as being able just to spam Torch Song. Literally goes burr. We do have great,
and it gets Slack off.
Oh yeah, and it gets great recovery too. Don't even, so many good qualities of this Pokemon that I wish other Pokemon had, and he looks cool. Speaking of
and
Pokemon,
it gets Shadow Ball just because.
Yeah. Speaking of cool Pokemon, we do have Squawkabilly. Squawkabilly is great, has different forms that it can use and such. And I mean, the only real difference is Sheer Force and Guts on the hidden abilities, but Squawkabilly definitely gets Parting Shot, which is a really great move. And Intimidate on all of the forms means that you always have a great Intimidator. Well, not great, but still really good, in my opinion.
Zibble.
And Parting Shot's great, and U-Turn. and definitely a interesting flying type. I don't know if I would have drafted it third on my team, but definitely still a fine Pokemon.
So, is it time to talk about the protein nerf?
Hmm?
Is it time to talk about the protein nerf?
Yeah, we're about to talk about Meowscarada, unfortunately. So I feel like this Pokemon should have been third instead of Squawkabilly, but even then, Protean getting a nerf where you only basically take on the type of the first move that you use during the battle, and they have to switch out and switch back in order to really reuse that, is an interesting change. Not a welcome one to some, but a welcome one to me personally. But
I feel like at that point, I'd rather just keep Overgrow.
yeah, at some point you're kind of just like, damn, I really don't like this anymore. But I think it's a fun
I'd rather
thing.
just use Overgrow.
Yeah, but it's still a really good ability regardless, and I think Meowscarada still takes advantage of it, being able to have a crit move that always crits, be able to U-turn, being able to use Dark Stab. I mean, it's still a really good Pokemon, though the Protean nerf is definitely...
You get to free up your Terra.
Yeah, and also, yeah, you get to basically just Terra into whatever type, and then...
We have 2 Terras.
You have 2 of them, basically, 2 Proteans. So, while I do like it, in summation, I definitely think the nerf is definitely gonna make this Pokemon not as potent, but it'll still be really good, no doubt.
Shell is legal.
Yep.
Bring that out there. Shell
is legal. And you might have seen recently, we haven't got into a team that has taken Cyclizar.
Was drafted.
It was drafted, but mind you, just keep in mind, we still have this team to keep going over and 3 more teams. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, Chantel and Orthworm is definitely a good thing. You're more or less just getting up out of there. But even if you don't use that move, Coil sets are still very potent by using Iron Tail, Body Press, and Coil. The only thing Orthworm doesn't get is recovery.
If you're scared of a ground move from going for Skeletor, you can just switch in and have Earth Eater.
Yep, Earth Eater is a great ability, so I mean, you have a really good pivot option, and basically Skeletors and Earthworm are covering each other's backs, and I mean, that's really dope. As I mentioned, doesn't get any recovery, so unfortunately you're going to be relying on leftovers more than not all the time. Otherwise, I mean...
just predict all the ground moves and recover with Earth Eater.
That too, you could just switch in on ground moves, but you never know. You could fight a Pokemon that's supposed to be going for a ground move, and you could get fucked up. So there's that. We have to talk about him. I mean, he's not better than my GOAT, Clodsire, but we do have OG GOAT, Quagsire. A great water ground type, great poke. You know what? I'm not even gonna talk about him. If you've been here, if you know Mons, if you know Pokemon, you know what Quagsire does. He's unaware wall, number 2 on this team, and he's a water ground type that is just perfection.
Skeletor is not an unaware wall.
No, it can be. You just haven't used it to be. Now, Quagsire is more of a wall, of course. And also, Terra on Quagsire would be really funny. So be very careful. You have to fight a Quagsire with a Terra type that you don't expect, because then you might not.
It's all fun and games until the Quagsire starts flying.
Exactly. It's all fun and games till the Quagsire grows wings. Rounding out the team, we have Morgrim, Cloth, Oricorio, and Girafarig. Morgrim screens, that's really it. And also Grimmsnarl did get access to Parting Shot.
And Thunderwave.
Thunderwave. So you really just have a status Pokemon, basically.
So this thing will be supporting Skeletor because Skeletor's base speed is 80, subpar. You got Thunderwave Morgrim to help that. That helps immensely. And screens make it just that little bit bulkier.
Yeah, you have a Pokemon that directly supports the offensive units in front of it, which I think is really dope. It's just, especially on a budget and with, an Eviolite, definitely a good Pokemon. Cloth gets that one ability, I always forget, Anger Shell. Boosted its attack and speed, but also lowers its defense by 1. Has Rocks. Regenerator's good ability as well, but I don't think it's
number 2
as much.
RP Wall number 2.
It could be. But I think that Regenerator on this Pokemon would be funny because it doesn't have the greatest of stats, and its weaknesses definitely are not great for it.
There's a reason why most rock types are offensive.
Hey, I'm just saying. That's why too.
Or steel.
Truly.
Now your crap has armor.
So I was gonna ask this: does Ted have access to every Oricorio?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, Ted got a really good bargain then, because Oricorio also gained access to Quiver Dance's generation because God hates me.
Or you could just steal somebody else's Quiver Dance.
That is also true. You want to switch it on some like Volcarona using Quiver Dance? Hey, go right ahead, take it. You don't have to ask.
Inferno was
You
not
get it.
drafted.
And did you also know that it can also steal Quaquaval's Aqua Step? Yeah, found that out recently.
What?
So-
How is that a dancing move?
I don't know, and I'm not going to question it. So fun fact for the video, if you made it this far, now you know that.
Fun fact of the day.
Yeah, but gaining access to Quiver Dance definitely makes this more of an offensive Pokemon. While it isn't the offensive Pokemon of the hour, because you have Skeletor's, Meowscarada, and Baxcalibur, and obviously, you know, you can definitely use Orthworm in that sense. I don't think it's still a fine Pokemon, no doubt, but I think that Oricorio definitely is kind of here because it still gets default, so it's kind of like, hey, it's here, I guess.
And the last Pokemon, which I always like to say backwards, Girafarig.
You all right, I'll give you props on that joke. Girafarig's cool. I love Girafarig, it's one of my favorite Pokemon, but honestly, it's just kind of here chilling. It can use an Eviolite now, I guess, but like you have a Morgrem for that, so nice normal psychic type, sure. I think that this team, the synergy's there. I really do enjoy it.
I know we have an item clause. I'm just gonna check what it is.
I think it's 2 of every item, I believe. So
Clause. No 2 Pokemon may start the match with the same item. So the VGC item clause.
oh, okay. Well, then you're basically just using one Eviolite. It's probably gonna be a Morgrem.
It's gonna be Morgrem.
So realistically, I think that this team synergy is good. I think that this team looks definitely cohesive. Definitely interested to see how it's going to function throughout the season. And, you know,
Other thing is that a lot of these Pokemon want to have leftovers for time with item clause. Keep in mind.
yeah, definitely going to be an interesting one to deal with item clause on this team, especially. But I definitely think this team is definitely like a 3.5. Definitely really like it. And Skeletor's, that's my boy.
Yeah.
But moving on.
So apparently its fire sombrero is a nest.
Yeah, but moving on.
It's a sombrero in our hearts.
Yeah, it is. It is. But we do have you used Squid's gosh again. We did not have the Sprite. We do apologize. All right. Next team is the Squid team.
Two more. Two more times we have to do the stupid thing where I don't have the Sprite. One more Rotom and one more Tauros.
Yeah, of course. So we have Lisbon, Arcanines, and Squid. Go ahead and list off Squid's team here.
Okay. The worst ability conceived by man, which belongs to Goldingo. Already, oh my god, I already forgot the name, so you know, we're off to a good Hydreigon. Azumarill, Canine, the boy, Clodsire, that is Rotom Frost, and a regular old midday Lycanroc, the not quite dead Primeape, Wigglytuff, and Jumpluff. So Goldango, in case you don't know, is the best hazard controller in the game, because its ability makes it so that you cannot Rapid Spin. It's a ghost type, so you cannot Rapid Spin against it, and you cannot defog against it because its ability makes it immune to all status moves. So unless you're Mousehold, you cannot remove hazards against this thing, or you're a poison type coming in against.
Which is just gosh darn unfortunate.
Hydreigon, same as always was. Usually it'll run Nasty Plot or Choice Specs, Choice Scarf. With special set, it can always surprise you with a physical set. It does get Dragon Dance, and it has a usable physical attack stat. Emerald, I assume 99% of the time it will use a Belly Drum. Canine, great defensive Pokemon, did lose access to teleport, which is unfortunate, or it can use offensively. It's good either way. Clodsire, I assume it's just better Quagsire.
Very much so. Poison Ground is definitely great. Having access to Water Azure and being a Poison Ground type means you take out one of your weaknesses, as well as being able to sponge hits for Golden Go, and even to some extent Arcanine, Clodsire, and Goldango. are really good together, as they can each support each other. At least they can try to support each other in their weaknesses, but that's really about it. Clodzar's he's just a homie. Like, I don't have any complaints about Clodzar. He's perfect in every way, shape, and form. I'm not taking questions on that.
Rotom Frost is one of the weaker Rotom forms, but it's not Rotom Fan, so...
This is true.
It's going to be Rotom Fan.
Yep.
This is not a Hail team, so I don't like it. It was a Snow team.
Excuse us.
It's a Hail team in my heart. It's still Hail in my heart. If it wasn't a Snow team, I would like it better, but Blizzard does not hit, and that being your style, I don't like it. And Ice is not a defensive typing, so you kind of have to use it offensively. So I don't like Rotom Frost. Talked about Lycanroc Dusk. Midday Lycanroc is like Lycanroc Dusk, but just a little bit better. No Sand team on here, so it's not going to use Sand Rush. So I similarly use Tough Claws. I believe that's the other ability. Right?
I mean, there is nothing that gets Sandstorm on this team, so I mean, he'd be most likely...
Does Lycanroc get Sandstorm?
I mean, it might, but even if it does, I feel like you don't want to just throw that move on there because you need all 4 of your move slots in a format like this.
Yeah, close combat. You want close combat, you want Stone Edge, you want to sell Rock, and then...
Swords Dance or some other coverage, you know?
Yeah. I really like... skipping Primeape, I don't care. I really like Wigglytuff as a Pokemon. It has decent coverage, it has Wish, it has... it's a great support Pokemon, and it does a surprising amount of damage. I used it in a league in Gen 8, and it got more kills than I expected. That being said, I expected it to get 0 kills, so... It kills is more than expected, but... This is fun. And Jumpluff, I think, just uses Sleep Powder.
Yeah, Jumpluff is kind of just there. I mean, I like Jumpluff personally, but you're mostly using it because you can Strength Sap, you can reduce things attack, you can be basically annoying with Leech Seed and such, but otherwise, Jumpluff doesn't do too much. I
don't mind it as a Pokemon, but it's not... That doesn't make it any good competitively.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree.
I'd say this is... I like the first 5. Nothing else.
Yeah, kind of like I said in the beginning, a lot of teams do really good at first, and then trying to fill out the rest of your team becomes a challenge. Therefore, I definitely agree. I think this team is still sitting there in the hunt of 3 out of 5 teams. But yeah,
I think this is 2.5.
2.5. Interesting. Well, Squid, you have to take that up with Marshadow. I tried.
Yeah.
But moving on to the second to last team, I'm pretty sure we have here. We have the West Coast Weezings and Charm. So the Weezings have a very good team, I would argue, but then you kind of keep looking at it and you're like, maybe not. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Quavo.
Remember how I said Rotom Frost was not Rotom Fan? Rotom Fan is Rotom Fan.
Yeah, the Rotom Fan is real. We have Quaquaval, we have Corviknight, Armarouge, Umbreon, Sandy Shocks, Mimikyu, Rotom Fan, Sneasel, Spidops, and Appleton. So, what do we
Sneasel Fan /
Hey, shh. No, I didn't. You didn't hear that. The Charms team starts out really, really fun. I like Quaquaval. I love Corviknight. Corviknight, one of the few, the proud defoggers, and definitely still does what it does last generation, if not slightly better, I guess.
Body press.
Yep, just set up and body press, or just sit there and be like, yep, you're not getting past me. But it does have a really great...
body press, boost.
Exactly.
Iron defense.
It has great support in Umbreon and Armarouge. Armarouge being able to have Flash Fire to prevent Corviknight from taking fire hits, and Umbreon overall is just a bulky mess. Additionally, having, I guess, pseudo support.
Also, extra points. Umbreon is my second favorite Pokemon. I think that earned them extra points.
Maybe. We'll see, because we still have to talk about the rest of that team. But it also has pseudo support from like Sandy Shocks. I guess if you're going to switch into an electric type attack, why not use the thing that's immune to it and is electric ground? But more on Quaquaval here. A great offensive Pokemon. Moxie's a great ability. Aqua Step obviously raises speed, so if you can get kills with that, you're basically boosting your speed and attack at the same time, which is definitely going to make it a very good and dominant sweeper. However, you do have a lot
for
of
a second
support.
if Dragon Dance dealt damage.
Exactly. Crazy Pokemon here, let me tell you. And additionally, it has great support, obviously with Corviknight, Armarouge, and Umbreon, as I mentioned earlier for Corviknight. But in addition to such, I feel like this team definitely has a lot of good things going on for the first 5. Definitely really great
Also,
glue.
So Mimikyu got an indirect buff. It lost its greatest enemy, Mold Breaker Excadrill.
This is true. This is true. But moving on to Sandy Shocks. Has good coverage and already has great stab and electric ground. Entirely, it's one of my favorite Paradox Pokemon, but that's only because it has a little dumb tail that I really like looking at because it's just floating. But Sandy Shocks is really fun. Definitely gives this team good momentum, as you do have just U-turn Quaquaval, U-turn Corviknight, and then also Volt Switch on the Sandy Shock. So you definitely have good momentum here.
And the Rotom.
And the Rotom, but we haven't gotten there yet. Good momentum, however. Mimikyu definitely losing weaknesses in Pokemon that get Mold Breaker, so Mimikyu definitely gets to do what it has always done, which is sit, Swords Dance, and go Burr. But that does mean, however, Mimikyu does have to come every week and do that same thing. But the thing about Mimikyu that I also think is really nice is that it's a good Ghost Fairy type on this team. And definitely loves having Corviknight next to it because no lie, Corviknight could definitely just switch in from Mimikyu, and so can Umbreon.
I would say this team has a good Fairy Dragon Steel Core, but then you raise the dragon to the apple pie.
Yeah, but that we'll get to how I feel about Appleton soon. Rotom Fan, as we mentioned, Rotom Fan is not the greatest Pokemon in the world. I mean, it's Rotom Fan for the love of Christ. It exists. It gets defog, I guess, and that's it. I mean,
it has the most useless ability in all Pokemon.
Yep. Has Levitate, unfortunately.
Levitate.
But when you think about it, if it becomes a pure electric type, then it becomes Electros, essentially.
Yeah, I guess now with Terra, Levitate could be useful.
I guess, quote unquote. Like, I think Rotom Fan is an interesting Pokemon on this team. You already had, bless you, you already had a defog, you already had an electric. Like, you didn't really need this Pokemon on this team. But let's talk about the last year Pokemon. We have what I almost called Sandslash, Sneasel. Because Weavile lost access to knockoff, so did Sneasel. So now you're relying on Night Slash. You have Ice Spinner instead of Triple Axle.
Triple Axle.
Yeah, you lost Triple Axle, so you got Ice Spinner.
So like, rather use Ice Crash.
Yeah, it's still doing the same thing it's always done, just without knockoff, unfortunately.
Gonna come in with a Choice Band and Ice Charge you.
Yeah, like, it's still gonna hurt. I still like it on this team because the offensive pressure it can bring to Pokemon that would normally be switching in on Corviknight. If Charm can pull off a double switch into Sneasel, then those Pokemon are definitely fearing for their life slightly more. Just because it does have knockoff does not mean it's not that strong. It just means it lost the ability to knock off items, which, while good, it's still a great Pokemon regardless. Now, these last few picks, Charm, I'm not gonna lie to you. Remember that point you earned earlier for having Umbreon? Let me tell you something. You just lost it. All right. You're probably not bringing Spidops. I'm not gonna lie. You're probably not bringing Spidops all the time. I know it gets webs. I understand. It's Spidops. That's my dog. But in a singles format where the 4 Pokemon that you bring, and even sometimes the 3 Pokemon that you bring for tiebreakers are very important, I think Spidops is going to be hitting the bench a lot of the time. Because a lot of the Pokemon, while they don't have like terrible speed, they definitely have that kind of like, oh, I can be a little bit fast, or, oh yeah, I'm just above base 100, like Sandy Shocks. So it's just kind of like the speed tiers are fine order-wise, but then trying to use Sticky Webs on top of that, it's kind of like a lot of mons either A, will not care, or B, you won't probably be able to get up your webs because the person knows that you're bringing Spidops, so they have a feeling they'll just kill it outright. So I feel like it's just here.
Or your Mimikyu or Sneasel, and you're going to be using exclusively priority moves.
Exactly. So it's just kind of like, why is it here? And then you have Appleton. I'm just gonna say it right off the bat. Appleton, despite being a nicely made Pokemon, does not fit for this team at all. I think that
it's a good design. That's where it stops.
Yeah, good design. That's it. I think that as a defensive grass dragon, sure, it can definitely be fun, but when the format calls for you to really use specific Pokemon in certain matchups, Albaton looks like it's going to be a great bench warmer and definitely providing for the team in terms of food by eating the crust. So realistically, it's just here.
You also have a much better tank in Umbreon.
Yeah, Umbreon and Corviknight basically do its job defensively, and offensively, you have Armarouge as a special attacker and Sandy Shock. So it's just kind of like...
Offensively, it doesn't do anything.
I mean, it still has good special attack and good stabs, but you're not using it over Sandy Shocks and Armarouge. That's the only problem I find. So, I mean, Charm, if it gets a bunch of kills this season and we're wrong, hey, come at me. I'd love to be surprised. But with this team, I think it's definitely in that 2.5, 3-point tier, or 3-star tier, excuse me. So, I mean, it's fine. It functions as a team. I think so. But I think that this team will definitely be an interesting one to watch and see how it goes. But we move on to the last team, which you remember how I said earlier?
Get to the end of round 3.
There it is. As I mentioned, everybody, I was about to say it. Remember how I mentioned that Cyclizar didn't get drafted until, like, it didn't get drafted at all at some point? Yeah, it got drafted last on the 3rd round.
That's ridiculous.
Now, mind you, I don't know how.
No, it's not like he drafted it on the wheel. No, he drafted it on the round 4 wheel.
Yeah, it was Cyclizar, Tinkaton as his wheel picks. And let me tell you something, Cyclizar was first. It's crazy. Go ahead and tell him about this team, though.
Okay, you got the Dead Monkey, and you got Ostrich. Pokemon that was banned when its move should have been banned. No, Cyclizar was not banned. No.
Not yet, at least.
Not yet. You got the bicycle. The not as cool bicycle. That's the giant hammer. Disappointment. Bird. Graffiti monkey. Pokemon who we still don't have. My very first shiny in this game.
Well, you heard it here first. Annihilate, Espathra, Cyclizar. Like, this team, like, it definitely hurts that New was drafting towards the end of the draft, because a lot of the better Pokemon that you could be drafting during this definitely got taken, but I feel like...
I mean, Cyclizar should have been drafted among the first 10.
I agree entirely. I think Cyclizar would have been great as, like, somebody's second round pick.
Instead, it got drafted 14, 28, 42nd.
Yeah, so he's just kind of there vibing, chilling. I don't know how he got here. I think that this team's good. I think that Water Tauros is fun. I think that Grafaiai is cool. Kilowattrel's fine. Tinkaton's cool. Like, everything's very, like, cool on this team, but how it meshes together, I don't know, because it doesn't feel like it meshes together at all. Like, Cyclizar's ability to get in Espathra is basically what's going to happen every other week. And then, or if it's not Espathra, it's Annihilate. Like,
so, because there is no difference between the two. That is the Dunsparce, not Dunsparce. Just pointing that out.
Yep, that is.
Because there is no difference between the two. Murkrow is a nice sneaky pick. You could have probably drafted it later, but I don't hate it. That being said, you don't need it. Your team is very fast, and the main thing that this thing offers is Tailwind and Thunderwave, and you don't need that.
Yeah, what we're gonna see from this team is mostly Shedtail shenanigans with the Annihilate, Espathra, perhaps Kilowattrel, and maybe even Water Tauros. But outside of that, you have good enough support for that kind of strategy with the Tinkaton.
So if you want Tailwind, you're gonna set with Kilowattrel, because Kilowattrel's ability will boost it after the Tailwind.
Of course, it'll boost its next Electric type attack, which is really, really convenient to have.
So half the stuff you get Murkrow for is gonna be done better by somebody else.
Yeah, and that's just kind of sad when you think about what you could and couldn't draft. Grafaiai is cool with Parting Shot and Prankster, obviously, because you didn't draft any terrain. You can't really make use of Unburden, but even then, it's not the greatest Unburden user. The Dunsparce is great support on this team, but, like, I don't know like it gets the coil body slam, like glare stuff and all that kind of stuff, but like it's
Green
literally,
but as
yeah,
always,
it's Dunsparce 2, so I'm kind of just like, sure.
unless he uses Dunsparce 3.
That is true. There is the other 3 segmented form. Sawsbuck is cool, I guess. I don't like it on this team. Sawsbuck is a cool Pokemon, but I feel like this team is just kind of like, it literally feels like this is what was left over, and you managed to get the top 3 picks, which are really good picks, mind you. I'm not going to say they aren't. Annihilate's great, Espather is great, and Cyclizar's great. After that,
And
it kind of feels like...
So you got 4 good Pokemon, the Dunsparce, another good Pokemon, and then 4 bad Pokemon. Well, Taurus is good. The others are not.
I feel like it just like, it's a very much, when you talk about synergy, this is definitely a team that suffers from not having good synergy.
Okay. This team consists of Annihilate, Esparta, Cyclizar, Tinkaton, Kilowattrel, and Tauros.
Yeah, that diagonal 4 is going to be like, oh, I might bring Gafaya to get off parting shot so I could weaken things, but then it's like, you don't need to. You can just not do that. But this team could surprise us. I think it's a 2 or even a 2.5 at most, but I think it's a 2.
Yeah.
I think it has so many underwhelming spots.
You have 6 good Pokemon, and they're not the 6 best Pokemon.
Yeah.
They're 6 above average Pokemon, but they're not overwhelmingly incredible. They're not Palafin, they're not Fluttermane, they're Annihilate with a Sparta.
Yeah, but you never know. Somebody out there could definitely look at your team and then underrate it and then get swept along by Tinkaton or something else. So I really do think that this team is looking like underrated, maybe very severely underrated team, but we'll see how it goes. But with that out of the way, guys, that's going to do it for the draft. Really, draft analysis of all 14 teams in the Game Room Season 6. If you want official postings of where we rank everybody, don't worry, I'll comb through this and I will definitely put it in the description or in the chat or probably both for the Game Room, so you guys see where we really rank them based on the numbers that we were giving you earlier. But thank you guys for watching. From me,
we'll have a tier list. We'll post it in the server.
Don't worry, we will have it for you, and you should definitely join the Game Rooms because then you can also participate in different seasons and different formats, and it's a really fun time. But thank you to Mr. Marshadow.
Yeah, if you want to keep up with the Game Room, you can subscribe here. You can follow on Twitter until that burns.
Yeah, of course, until Elon messes it up more. From me and Marshadow, we'll see you guys next time.